From the KAKE studios, this is Flight 5342, 1 year later.
8:48 p.m., Wednesday, January 29, 2025. An Army Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Eagle commercial plane from Wichita over the Potomac River in our nation's capital.
It just breaks our heart to hear something like this occur. It's devastating for everyone. 3
U.S. Army service members died, along with 64 people on the flight. 7 of them lived in Kansas.
She was tenacious and intense and beautiful.
Tonight, 1 year later, hear from their families as they continue to move forward day to day.
Hard to believe it's been a year. Feels like yesterday, and it feels like it's been 20 years of pain.
We look at the changes made since the crash.
It's not just banning those helicopters, it's also requiring those helicopters to have ADS-B.
And what it's like to fly there now, 1 year after Flight 5342. These are the 7 Kansans killed in the Flight 5342 crash. Grace Maxwell, Kia Duggins, Dustin Miller.
PJ Diaz, Lindsay Fields, and Bob and Lori Schrock. Now, a year later, their families are still healing, grieving, and demanding answers over what happened that night in the air over the Potomac River.
It's an area that's already seeing major changes. Just last week, the federal government issued a near total ban on helicopter traffic near Reagan Washington National Airport.
KAKE News just returned from Washington, D.C. to look at Reagan Airport up close to see all the traffic and understand the concerns people had long before what happened 1 year ago. We met with witnesses and also people who fly the same route often with what they think about.
Runway and you have a day old.
1 year ago, Abadi Ismail was homesick. He makes a living out on the Potomac River chartering cruises. But on January 29, 2025, that night,
laying down in bed, and all of a sudden I hear a bang bang, and it was very loud to a point where you're going to have to kind of look and see what happened.
Ismail saw and soon talked about the collision involving American Eagle Flight 5342 and an Army helicopter over the Potomac, posting videos on social media and appearing on shows about what he saw.
A story that really captured the nation, and I feel for the families of these victims.
John Mahalik is retired but spent decades jumping out of airplanes in the Army.
We have a lot of close calls here with aircrafts because there's just so many aircrafts here, but you never expected that to happen.
Reagan Washington National Airport is unusual in its close proximity to the D.C. metro area. With light traffic, one can be steps from the U.S. Capitol and a 10-minute drive from leaving the airport. Yet the air traffic is constant from Reagan, all over D.C. A walk to see the national monuments is filled with commercial jets in the background, with the noise letting you know that they're there. About 800 flights a day in and out of Reagan, known as DCA, during sunlight and after dark. It's not unusual for another commercial jet to come in every 60 or 90 seconds. The night KAKE News was there, we went back to DCA to talk with passengers on the Wichita to Washington nonstop flight, the same service that was Flight 5342 last year. It's now called Flight 5527. Only 5 people are at the baggage claim on what passengers said was a small aircraft that night. We met John Eves, who's taken the same flight, Wichita to DC, a few times.
A year ago, I just taken the flight the day before, and my family had also taken the flight just recently as well, so it was a little disturbing, very disturbing.
He lives in Washington, but his family in Wichita.
No, the traffic here has always been a concern because of the helicopter flights that would go up and down the Potomac, and it was more than one occasion where you saw the closeness of the landing aircraft on approach and the helicopters going across the Potomac. So it was a huge concern for a lot of people who lived here.
Or another passenger who says it's natural to think about the tragedy.
And then I flew again here on that flight last March afterwards, and that was sort of nerve-wracking. During landing, I kept thinking, everything's normal, but that's what they thought.
Ismail noted from his view at home fewer and fewer helicopters. Then last Friday, January 23rd, new rules from the Department of Transportation and the FAA effectively banned all non-essential helicopter operations near Reagan Washington National Airport. But for the families of the people who died on Flight 5342 1 year ago, that action will never fully heal the broken hearts of lives lost.
Just sadness. So many possibilities that were lost in that one tragic event. Your heart goes out to the families that were affected, and it affected the whole nation.
The helicopter traffic along the routes over the Potomac River, known as Route 4, drew intense scrutiny after the collision.
Chief Meteorologist Jay Prater is here with us now. And Jay, you're a commercial pilot. Show us those routes that night and what's changed.
Well, the routes were developed back in 1986. This is what they look like. All these blue lines are essentially highways in the sky for helicopter traffic. This is the FAA chart that was valid January 2025. There's Reagan National, the approach to runway 33. Coming up south of the Potomac, making that visual approach to 33, notice you cross over the top of helicopter Route 4. Now, as the NTSB pointed out, when you're on the approach path, the 33, well, you descend within 75 feet of the corridor that is Route 4. Based on that, the NTSB recommended that those routes be closed. The latest chart that has been issued, you notice the closure of Route 4. It is no more. And what was Route 6 that came over Reagan National going east to west over the Potomac, well, that's been diverted well to the south.
Tonight, we hear from more of the victims' families as they continue to heal and demand answers.
We also hear from Senator Jerry Moran on changes to air safety already underway as we look back on Flight 5342 1 year later.
We're going to know people who are on this flight, know their family members, know somebody. So this is a very personal circumstance as well as an official response. And again, we will do everything we can to make certain that we're supportive of the rescue efforts.
That was Kansas Senator Jerry Moran the night of the crash of Flight 5342. A year later, he's not forgotten those words.
KAKE's Pilar Pedraza sat down with him to find out what changes have come to air traffic safety in the last 12 months.
Even before we knew exactly what caused the crash of Flight 5342 with that Army Black Hawk helicopter, Kansas Senator Jerry Moran was hinting at changes to air safety.
What needs to take place following the outcome of this evening and this month's kind of investigation.
As we enter January of this year, he said those changes are happening.
There's a lot of effort, certainly by the family members, to make sure that there is something good that comes from that tragedy.
One change already in place, a now permanent ban for military and national security helicopters from operating in the flight zone around Reagan National Airport in D.C.
One of the first things that I and the ranking member of our subcommittee on aviation did was ask the FAA, ask the Department of Transportation to ban those flights, to remove those helicopters from that air traffic area. And they did. And that remains in place. It's the policy.
But it's only policy under the FAA, not law, something Senator Moran says he's still trying to change as just one provision in the Rotor Act currently making its way through Congress.
We do want it in statute. It's not just banning those helicopters. It's also requiring those helicopters to have ADS-B, which was a requirement for it in part, but it was waivable. And what I think we learned is that the military helicopters are outdated. Their technology is if it was there, it wasn't being used. And so there needs to be requirements that will involve updating our military air traffic.
Something that will cost money. Another change headed our way that will also cost money, updated air traffic control technology.
We appropriated $12.5 billion to improve the air traffic control infrastructure. That's a lot of money. It's not enough, but it's a lot of money to get us on a path toward safer skies.
That $12 billion is less than half the $30 billion Moran estimates the update will eventually cost, but he's positive the rest of the money will come, in part thanks to the Flight 5342 victims' families.
I meet with family members frequently, and they are on a mission, and they have the credibility, the standing to make the case that something needs to be done here.
The work, he says, is already underway. A company already hired to help design the new air traffic control system.
How far out are we from that becoming effective for air travelers?
I think it's 2 or 3 years before the full benefits.
In addition to the new system being designed, Senator Moran said even before this collision, things were happening. We'd already increased the number of air traffic controllers being hired and trained by the government. The senator said changes are happening, if not quite as fast as some would like.
The NTSB will release its final report in the coming weeks, including safety recommendations. The investigation revealed a series of systemic problems the board says allowed the crash to happen as the flight was on final approach to the airport. Investigators say they learned the helicopter's main rotor hit the underside of the plane's left wing, ripping it off the plane and sending both aircraft into the Potomac River. Among the problems that led up to the crash included the fact the Army helicopter was not properly signaling its GPS location to air traffic control or other nearby aircraft. We've also now learned investigators are discovering problems that impacted the air traffic control tower.
This investigation at every turn uncovered longstanding issues at DCA Air Traffic Control Tower. We've heard countless times now about the make it work mentality that penetrated seemingly every facet of the workforce, and how the workforce in the tower had begun to accept unsafe conditions or near misses as routine and part of the job.
The NTSB cannot force its recommendations to be adopted. The FAA says it will review the changes, but the board has warned that many past recommendations have gone nowhere.
How could you, as a mom, how could you take her from the best place she could be? But selfishly, I want her back.
When we come back, we hear from the family of Grace Maxwell and the impact she's still making 1 year later. 20-year-old Grace Maxwell, family and friends describe her as a beautiful soul, tender, precious, loving, and forgiving. She was on Flight 5342, headed back to college from Wichita after burying her beloved grandfather. Her family now dealing with 2 deaths in just 2 weeks.
Whatever struggle you and I are going through, God is using that struggle. He is using it to help us survive, to make us stronger. There will be blessing that comes out of this.
A voice from above, Grace Maxwell, the 20-year-old majoring in mechanical and biomedical engineering and Bible study, the friend, the sister, the daughter. Her words as a morning radio host at her college Christian station.
It's okay to have a bad day, and it is going to get better, I promise.
I think they're encouraging because she was very open and vulnerable about sharing struggles that she had. But in the process of doing that, she's also, sharing advice and comfort that is like a lot of the things that we need right now.
Dad Dean, Mom Mayrov, and brother Leo miss her laugh, her smile, her light as the dark anniversary of her death hits hard.
There's not a day you don't think about it, that you don't wake up thinking about it and going to sleep thinking about it. But there's definitely a lot coming up with the anniversary coming up. Hard to believe it's been a year. Feels like yesterday, and it feels like it's been 20 years of pain.
I am allowed to have a rough day. You're allowed to have a rough day. Because with God's help, it will get better.
January 29th, Grace was on Flight 5342, headed back to Cedarville University, a private Baptist university in Ohio. She'd been home in Wichita for her grandfather's funeral.
We had his funeral was on Tuesday, and then she was set to fly out Wednesday back to school. And so we had a nice day together, just quiet at home, and tried to soak her up as much as we could. We just spent the day together, and then I took her to the airport.
But you can see in the distance all of the emergency vehicles there as they are looking for any survivors. When Mayrov checked the news just a few hours later, she learned what would change her family's life forever.
I opened my phone and I saw that there had been a plane crash in DC, and my first thought, that's why she hasn't called, because the plane's been delayed or something. And then I saw that the flight was from Wichita, and I knew, and I just fell on the ground.
I remember after, the initial wave hit, I was just mad. I was really angry.
Lots of tears, unimaginable heartbreak, and still hope as they remember the young woman who made them smile.
She loved all things animals, and she loved the water, and she loved to be outside, and she loved to be read to. And she was tenacious and intense and beautiful.
And she was smart, already reading at 4 years old. She loved crocheting, and she loved to laugh.
She had this sense of humor. She could also appreciate a good joke, and she had the greatest laugh. It was almost a cackle, and it was just so contagious. You know, it was so hard not to smile when you would hear it.
She made a splash in the swimming world. It was her passion. She excelled in the pool.
She was a good swimmer.
She was very competitive.
She's very competitive.
She wasn't like the most naturally gifted out there, but she worked hard. Yeah, she would give it her all. Every practice, she was gonna get up there.
Leo describes his older sister as a daredevil, not afraid of anything, not afraid to move hundreds of miles away from home for college, not afraid of flying. He remembers their last long conversation, one he'll never forget, the night before their grandfather's funeral.
They both wanted to go to bed, and we stayed up at that kitchen table right in there. We talked for hours, probably about 3 hours.
What'd you talk about?
A lot of stuff. We talked about, I told her about kind of just what had been going on since we saw each other at Thanksgiving, just, you know, stuff in my life. And she told me about her school stuff and a little bit about her radio stuff.
Sometimes we just have to take a deep breath, take the next step, let the struggle make us stronger, and count on the Lord and the people around us to help.
She was pretty sweet.
Marking 1 year since she's been gone isn't easy, but the Maxwells rely on their faith. They say their church family, Grace's school, their close friends and family have been there and continue to support them through their darkest days, as does Grace.
Someone asked if I had the choice, if I could go reach up in heaven and bring her back. Would I? And selfishly, I would want to, but she's in such a better place. How could you, as a mom, you know, how could you take her from the best place she can be? But selfishly, I want her back.
God has a plan for our lives, and throughout that dash between birth and death, we should be ready to follow His will and go with His plan. So what are you waiting for? I'm Grace with Resound Radio, your music, your faith.
The family later found out the diver who recovered Grace's body from the Potomac went to that same Christian college where Grace was going to school.
As we close tonight, we pause to honor those victims who did not make it home.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.